When you're strong enough to unmask the narcissist, you'll realize they were never truly sorry. When you are in a relationship with a narcissist, isolation becomes inevitable. Dr. Ramoni Dervisula, a leading expert on narcissistic abuse, often warns that one of the first strategies narcissists employ is cutting their partners off from supportive relationships. Anyone who truly loves or validates you becomes dangerous in their eyes, because such people can pierce the narcissist's illusion of control. Over time, this calculated severing of ties depletes your emotional and social resources, leaving you stranded. Victims often describe feeling like prisoners of war, cut off, worn down, and deprived of energy to resist. The tragedy lies in how subtly it unfolds. What begins as concern about certain friends or family gradually transforms into control and enforced loneliness. What drives this? Psychologists like Dr. George Simon explain that narcissists harbor deep envy. They cannot bear to witness the growth or joy of others, especially those they control. When their partner matures, finds acceptance, or begins to live authentically, the narcissist interprets it as a direct threat to their fragile sense of superiority. The result is resentment and sabotage. On the surface, they may wear the mask of the supportive partner or good parent, but behind that mask is a relentless determination to erode your confidence and sense of self. Victims often find themselves gaslit into believing that the destruction they experience is somehow their fault, when in fact it is the narcissist's envy disguised as concern. A haunting question emerges here. Do narcissists know the damage they inflict? Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, argues that narcissists are not oblivious to the suffering they cause. They register it. They may even acknowledge it fleetingly. But what they lack is empathy, the emotional bridge that would allow them to truly feel your pain and change their behavior. The narcissist recognizes your tears, but rather than seeing them as a call to compassion, they see them as obstacles in their path. This absence of empathy explains why relationships with narcissists feel one-sided, hollow, and relentlessly draining. Because of this empathy deficit, remorse becomes almost impossible. Psychologists note that remorse requires two capacities: recognition of wrongdoing and the emotional courage to sit with guilt. Narcissists may recognize they've done something socially wrong, but guilt is intolerable to them. Instead, as Dr. Eleanor Greenberg explains, they deploy defenses such as denial, minimization, or projection. Rather than admit, "I hurt you," they downplay the wound, insist you are too sensitive, or shift blame entirely onto you. This is not accidental. It is a defense mechanism protecting their fragile ego from collapse. How they respond to evidence of wrongdoing is equally telling. Victims often confront narcissists with undeniable proof, only to be met with dismissiveness or rage. This aligns with what Dr. Carol McBride describes as the no accountability rule. The narcissist cannot process shame in a healthy way, so they deflect it outward. They minimize the damage, insist the issue is overblown, or detach themselves from the event entirely, acting as though it never happened. For the victim, this creates a maddening cycle of invalidation. Not only are you hurt, but you are also denied acknowledgement of that hurt. Over time, this corrodes your self-trust and sense of reality. The most insidious part is that narcissists often frame their hostility as self-defense. Their paranoia leads them to perceive threats where none exist. Dr. Aaron Beck, father of cognitive therapy, observed that narcissists frequently interpret neutral actions as hostile. A partner's independence might be seen as betrayal, or a child's assertiveness as disrespect. This distorted lens then becomes justification. "I only lashed out because you were attacking me." In truth, the attack was imagined, but the rationalization provides them cover to continue abusive patterns without confronting their own accountability. For victims, understanding these dynamics is crucial to survival and healing. Recovery begins with recognizing that you cannot extract empathy or remorse from someone who is structurally incapable of offering it. Dr. Judith Herman, in her work on trauma, emphasizes the importance of reclaiming one's voice and narrative after abuse. That means shifting the focus away from convincing the narcissist to change and toward protecting your peace. Boundaries become your shield, whether that means reducing contact, going no contact, or limiting access to your emotional energy. Supportive relationships are equally vital. Dr. Lundy Bancroft underscores that healing from narcissistic abuse requires replacing toxic invalidation with affirming connections. Friends, therapists, and support groups serve as lifelines, reminding you that your pain is real and your worth intact. Explaining yourself to a narcissist is like shouting into a void. Explaining yourself to those who care becomes an act of reclamation. Ultimately, the narcissist's lack of remorse is not a reflection of your worth, but of their inner emptiness. They cannot empathize because doing so would shatter the fragile defenses holding their identity together. Your task, then, is not to awaken their conscience, but to safeguard your own. Every step toward boundary setting, every act of self-compassion, and every connection with safe others chips away at the power they once held over you. And in that process, you rediscover the life they tried so hard to erase. One of the most insidious tactics narcissists employ is the art of minimization. Psychologists like Dr. Ramoni Dervisula emphasize that this is not accidental. It is a deliberate way to shift the emotional burden onto you. When their words slice through you like glass, they dismiss it with, "You're too sensitive. Can't you take a joke?" In that moment, the issue is no longer about their cruelty, but about your alleged fragility. This subtle maneuver, known as gaslighting, destabilizes victims by making them question their own reality. Over time, you begin to wonder if perhaps you are the problem, and that doubt is exactly what feeds the narcissist's power. Beneath this strategy lies a deeper psychological mechanism. Dr. George Simon, an expert in manipulative personalities, explains that narcissists crave dominance in every interaction. If you accept their narrative that your pain is an overreaction, you've handed them victory. They thrive when you silence your instincts, and this is why so many victims of narcissistic abuse find themselves apologizing for being hurt. For the narcissist, the joke wasn't a misstep. It was a test to see how easily you could be manipulated into erasing your own truth. Another disturbing trait is their selective memory. Victims often report that narcissists seem to conveniently forget the cruelties they inflicted, while holding grudges over the smallest perceived slights for years, even decades. Dr. Eleanor Greenberg describes this as narcissistic rewriting of history. They erase their sins to preserve their fragile self-image, while rewriting you into the role of aggressor. If necessary, they will even invent false evidence, convincing themselves and others that they were the victim all along. This warped memory is not simply forgetfulness. It is a psychological defense to shield them from unbearable shame, while keeping you trapped in confusion and self-doubt. This distortion of reality creates chaos in communication. Misunderstandings are not accidents, they are carefully sown seeds. According to Dr. Carol McBride, author of Will I Ever Be Free of You?, narcissists employ 3 core strategies when confronted: rationalization, minimization, and blame shifting. They explain away their actions with elaborate justifications, downplay the harm they've caused, or outright deny it happened. And if all else fails, they find a scapegoat, often the very person they injured. This cycle ensures that accountability never touches them. For the victim, the result is exhaustion, self-blame, and the erosion of confidence in one's own perceptions. Even when a narcissist appears to apologize, psychologists warn us to look closer. Dr. Lundy Bancroft calls these false apologies empty gestures designed to shut down further conversation. They may say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," which is not an admission of wrongdoing but a dismissal disguised as empathy. Notice how the responsibility is subtly transferred back to you. Your feelings, not their behavior, become the focus. Victims who accept these apologies are lulled into silence, giving the narcissist yet another escape route from accountability. This pattern persists because, at their core, narcissists cannot tolerate the idea of being flawed. Their self-concept is too brittle to withstand guilt or shame. Dr. Craig Malkin explains that narcissists live with a constant undercurrent of insecurity, masked by grandiosity. To admit they were wrong would be to confront that inner emptiness, and so they protect themselves with excuses, denials, and projections. The tragedy is that this defense mechanism perpetuates the harm. They avoid shame at the expense of your sanity and peace. For victims, the path forward lies not in extracting remorse from the narcissist but in reclaiming your own narrative. Psychologists consistently stress the importance of boundaries. When you refuse to let a narcissist minimize your pain or twist your reality, you disrupt their cycle of control. Dr. Judith Herman emphasizes that healing begins when victims find safe spaces to tell their stories, to friends, therapists, or support groups that validate their truth. Every time you resist their excuses, every time you stand firm in your reality, you chip away at their power. Of course, narcissists avoid those who cannot be manipulated. The moment you stop accepting their excuses, you become dangerous to them. That is why many survivors eventually notice the narcissist retreating or discarding them altogether. While painful, this can also be liberating, because it is proof that you are no longer under their spell. You have declared, consciously or unconsciously, that you will no longer play their game. So remember, narcissists will rarely, if ever, apologize sincerely. They will cloak cruelty in humor, bury truth in false memories, and offer apologies that are anything but genuine. But none of that defines your worth. What defines you is your ability to see through the excuses, protect your boundaries, and refuse to surrender your reality. And in doing so, you step into a power that no narcissist can erase.